Good morning, my friends, and welcome to Crimes with Cole. So good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you doing today? How has your week been? I hope you guys all have had a safe and great week, and if not, it's okay because the week won't be here very soon. So, today, we are going to be talking about the case of Maddie Clifton, an 8-year-old girl whose life was taken way too soon by the neighbor boy next door. Maddie was born on June 17th, 1990 in Jacksonville, Florida. She lived with her mom and dad and her older sister, Jessie, and she was said to be a very loving and caring little girl. On the evening of November 3rd, 1998, Maddie had ran out of the house as soon as her mom got home from work to go play with all the other neighborhood kids. And Maddie knew to be home in time for supper. So when she didn't make it home that night, her parents knew something was wrong and immediately reported Maddie missing. Once word got out that Maddie was missing, the entire town was on the search for this little girl. Hundreds of people volunteered their time to search. The cops were on the lookout. Even the National Guard was coming in to search the sewer systems for this little girl. And she was just simply nowhere to be found. Can you imagine? Your little girl, your little 8-year-old girl, running outside to play with all the neighborhood kids like she does any other time, any other day of the week. And then she just simply vanishes. No one saw anything. On November 10th, 7 days after Maddie was reported missing, Maddie's parents were finishing up a nationwide TV interview. The mother of Joshua, Phillips, came running across the street to get the attention of an officer because she knew where Maddie Clifton's body was. And the Clifton family's lives were forever about to be changed. Joshua was the son of Missy and Stephen Phillips, who had lived across the street from the Clifton family. Joshua was born on March 17th, 1984 in Pennsylvania, but the family later had moved to Florida. He was a freshman in high school and said to be a C average student. His father, Stephen, was a computer specialist, but was extremely strict and very violent towards his wife and son. Stephen hated when people were at his house while he wasn't home. So he forbid anyone from coming over unless he was there. And he also had a drinking problem, and the more he drank, the meaner he became. On the life-changing night of November 3rd, Maddie was outside looking for some fellow neighborhood friends to play with when she noticed her neighbor Josh home, playing with a baseball by himself in the front yard. Because his parents were gone, Maddie approached him wanting to join. Instead of saying no, Joshua insisted the two play baseball. 14-year-old Joshua hit the ball and hit 8-year-old Maddie in the head with the baseball. She started crying frantically, as most of us would after being struck in the head with a baseball. And instead of Josh rushing her back home across the street to her mom and dad, he took her inside his own home with the baseball bat he was just using to play baseball with. He swung it back over his head and struck little Maddie in the side of the head over and over and over again. Panicking, Josh did not know what to do. So he took unconscious Maddie, drug her to his bedroom, and put her underneath his waterbed. And if you don't remember waterbeds, or you're just not familiar with them, they're essentially a huge bag of water that fits into a wooden frame shaped to whatever size bed you prefer. Usually a full or a queen, but whatever size. And the sides of the frame were probably like a foot high to hold in the huge bag of water. So Joshua took Maddie, lifted up the water bed, and scrunched her up into the corner of the bed frame. She's unconscious, but alive. And after Maddie's mother had reported her missing that night because she didn't make it home for supper, this is when Joshua took the drastic path of going into his bedroom where little unconscious Maddie had laid, lifted up his waterbed, and took Maddie's life. With his Leatherman multi-tool knife, Joshua had stabbed Maddie 7 times in the chest. 7 times. He then placed his waterbed back on top of Maddie and didn't speak a word of it to anyone. 7 days later, after Joshua and his family, alongside many neighbors and people in the community, searched for this little girl, Joshua's mother, Missy, came running out of the house on November 10th, telling officers she had found Maddie's body under her son's bed. And the question everyone had was, did Josh sleep in his bed all week? And the fact is, Joshua had slept in his bed for the entire week, knowing there was a little girl whose life he had taken smashed in the corner under the mattress. Now, a lot of people question how the police didn't notice the smell when they had searched Joshua's house, and how his parents didn't notice the smell of a rotting corpse in their son's bedroom. The family had owned birds, and for anyone who has owned multiple birds, you know they can have a smell to them. Nothing similar to a rotting corpse, but Josh was able to blame that weird smell on the birds. So it had redirected the police in their search. He also had air fresheners and incense burning in his room and spraying his room constantly. So he was able, with those 3 things, to mask the smell of Maddie's body after a few days of being underneath his bed. And the only way Maddie's body was found was from a huge wet spot Joshua's mother noticed on the carpet. And she started searching her son's room and down the hallway to figure out, what is this wet spot from? I mean, it was big. And when she entered Josh's room, she saw Maddie's small feet sticking out of the corner of Josh's bed frame. And this is when she had rushed out of the house to find an officer. And for a brief moment, as she stood in her doorway of her house, she saw the Clifton family finishing up their TV interview. And she said she saw how much hope the family still had for finding their little girl. And she was getting ready to deliver the news that would rip all of that hope away, forever changing the Clifton family's lives. On the afternoon of November 10th, Joshua was arrested at school and was charged with first-degree murder, and became the focus point on this nationwide case. And everyone who knew Josh was instantly shocked. It is said that a lot of people had to say it out loud to themselves to even comprehend that Josh The Josh that they knew was the same Josh that was all over the news that had committed this crime. On November 16th, it was decided that 14-year-old Joshua would be tried as an adult. And on April 22nd, his trial was moved to Polk County by Judge Charles Arnold because of all of the pretrial publicity in Jacksonville. On July 6th, the trial began and only lasted 2 days. Joshua's attorney didn't bring on any witnesses. And on August 20th, Joshua was sentenced to life in prison, being called monstrous by the judge themselves. On November 17th, 2017, Joshua was given the chance to have a new sentencing hearing because the Supreme Court says that no juvenile can be automatically sentenced to life, but his fate remains the same. And he was given life in prison the second time around as well. Maddie's parents ended up divorcing after 25 years of marriage. They said that the death of their daughter really took a toll on them. Her sister, Jessie, ended up buying the family home because she didn't want to part ways with it. And while the horrific crime of her sister's death was right across the street, she still found that her home had amazing memories of them as a family before this tragedy had happened. And she didn't want to lose that. Joshua's father ended up dying in 2000 from a car accident. And his mother tried to lay low after the trial. She tried to keep to herself, stay inside a lot because of people's reaction to what her son had done. But this is certainly a case where everyone loses. Both families have to carry on a life without their babies. I mean, to wake up and look across the street, or wake up and look down the hallway into your son's room and know that this is something that simply could have been avoided. It is just devastating to know that all Joshua had to do was just take Maddie home. Just take her home and tell Mrs. and Mr. Clifton, hey, I'm so sorry. We were playing and I hit her in the head with a baseball by accident. I'm so sorry. I'm sure they would have understood. But for Josh to feel like his punishment from his father was going to be so much worse than the punishment for taking someone's life really makes me question how horrible his father truly was. And if Josh was ever examined psychologically over his reasoning of how he feared what his father would do to him had he found out that he had somebody over while his parents were gone. It's just a devastating case all the way around. But you'll have to let me know what you think. Do you think Joshua is truly a monster or just did a monstrous act out of fear from his dad, who was the true monster? I don't know, guys. You're going to have to let me know because I'm just curious where his thought process was. But until next time, please remember to be safe, and I will see you then. Bye!